You are listening to The Catholic Wire.
Welcome back to the Faith and to our final episode about Margaret's story. Remember that Margaret was in Scotland and she was a Mormon together with all her family, and through God's inspirations and some dreams that she received, she was able to join the Catholic Church. She traveled to Los Angeles where she met Father Procopio, who was a Catholic priest and who instructed her in the faith. After she came back to Scotland, she started coming in contact with some other Catholic groups, and we come now to the part of her story where she tells us where they are at right now, what has happened to her family, and finally some of our comments and final remarks on this beautiful story of Back to the Faith. If you haven't heard the previous two episodes, I would certainly encourage you to do so. They are very, very edifying, and that will explain a lot of what you're going to hear in today's episode. Let's go back to Margaret's story.
We did go down to, continuing on with my story, it just never ceases to amaze me how God works, though. It's incredible sometimes, absolutely incredible.
For sure.
We went down, it was actually quicker, believe it or not, for us to fly to the chapel in Los Angeles than it was to drive to Norfolk, to go to the opposite end of the British Isles, basically, to go to Mass there, and they were only having Mass every so often. They had Father Riesling and Father Heine come over from Germany to offer their Masses. So at that point, we thought, right, well, what do we do here? We don't really know enough. So prayed again. I feel as though this is the theme running through it. When I'm all out of everything, I pray. And so prayed for guidance in what we should do. And for some reason, I had a feeling that I wanted to see a liturgical year out, to see what happened, like on each day of the year. I just felt almost like I needed that to somehow keep going, that I knew that we were going to hit a drought almost, or a famine, whatever, but I needed this to keep us going. So we prayed and applied for a visa for 6 months to get into the United States. And so we went for 6 months. We took 7 of the children, came with us, and we went over to spend 6 months going to daily Mass. And then whilst we were there, we applied for an extension so that we could, and were granted that, so that we could spend the full year there. We spent a year there with going to daily Mass with Father Procopio. And during that time, the boys, Jared and Caleb, were able to learn to serve at Mass. And I don't know, I guess for me, I recognised at that point that, and this will embarrass Caleb, so you can keep it or cut it, whatever, but this will embarrass him. But I realised at that time that there, I guess maybe you could say, was something different, in that the girls and I had gone out one night the boys weren't at that point serving at Mass, but we had gone out, they'd spoken to them about the possibility of them learning to serve at Mass. And someone there had given, on a CD player or something, or an MP3, they'd given Caleb a copy of the Latin responses. And so the girls and I went shopping, and Caleb said, "Oh, I'm not going shopping, I'll just sit in the car." Now, bear in mind, he was 12 years old at this point, and he sat in the car and listened to these Latin responses just whilst we went in and out of shops. And we got to Mass the next morning, and Father Procopio came bustling out and says, I don't have a server. Can any of you boys serve? And Caleb said, I've listened to the responses, Father. That's fine, that'll do. And basically, that was him. He was thrown in, like literally thrown in. Now, I wouldn't say he gave his responses perfectly, but Father Procopio certainly did not complain and said to him, oh, that's good, you've learned it. And he said, I only listened to it last night. And Father could not believe that he had just listened for just whilst we were in the shops, and that he had remembered these responses to the Mass. So Father really took the boys under his wing, and he's been a huge, huge influence, I think, on Caleb. Because you probably know Caleb's a no-nonsense person as well, and Father Procopio was most definitely like that. He would tell it like it was, and he didn't care like who was listening. It was, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and that's how he was. So he was a huge influence, huge influence on Caleb.
Something I wanted to comment on is I've been thinking about this a lot because I have some missions, here and there, and the missions are very small. And it's kind of like the situation that you're talking about. They don't get to see the actual liturgical year. They get to see masses on Sundays and everything, but for Corpus Christi, they don't get to see the huge procession. For the Holy Week, they don't get to see perhaps the rites as great as they should be. And that's something I've been thinking about, that I think every Catholic out there that is living out in the missions or something should make it a point. Obviously, not everyone can travel for the whole year, but they should make it a point to go to big churches, at least for some of the feast days, like Corpus Christi, Holy Week, those kind of things, so that they get the picture of what this is supposed to be. So that, back in the missions, you can grow up the mission someday and make it like that. But at least okay, this is what it is. This is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's very important.
It is really important. Definitely. So that was it. We did our year there, came back, and before the morning that we left, Father gave me a printout and said to me, I said, Father, I really feel like we're going back to nothing. And I'm not really sure that I'm not sure that we're strong enough. I'm not sure that we know enough. And he said, oh, you don't need to worry. Don't worry. And just don't ever leave yourself without a priest. If someone's dying, don't ever leave yourself without a priest. Find an old priest. Just find, a really old priest. But don't let anyone die, without extreme unction. And he kept telling me, you don't worry, you hand everything over to Our Lady and you don't worry. And I know you won't be tempted, but here, and he gave me this letter where he talks about how the Novus Ordo is just a circus. And basically, really, what I would call his testimony. It was really nice. And he said to me, don't ever worry. God did not pluck you out of Scotland for nothing. There's, that just do his will, hand everything to God, and you've got no need to worry. Don't ever worry. And so that was it. We came back here, and by this point we'd almost bankrupted ourselves because we were living in two houses, because we had our home here in Scotland and we'd had to rent over there. So we came back to like a financial ruin practically, but it was worth every penny. I couldn't have cared less about that. Neither of us could. It was just, well, what will be, will be. We felt like, I kind of felt, well, God called and we answered. So I wasn't going to worry about anything else. I really wasn't going to worry about it. And I'm not saying that in a flippant way, because it was difficult. But,
yeah, for sure.
But when you have that spiritual peace, the rest doesn't really matter. It's really nothing. So when we came back, we couldn't, really, wasn't, one, we didn't have the money to get back down to keep going down to Norfolk. So we were pretty much on our own. I decided to home educate the children rather than send them back to Catholic school. I'm not sure that they would have taken Caleb back anyway, because he had just the night before we left, we had a parents' evening at his high school, and he had a run-in apparently with the priest, because the priest had told the at high school they were all to go to confession, and the teacher had made him go to confession. And I believe it was the Monsignor, somebody or other, that was in confessional, and Caleb went in and said, I'm not giving you my confession because I've been forced to come in here, and you're not even a proper real priest because you're Novus Ordo, so you're not hearing my confession. And walked back out of the confessional, so I got pulled up from the priest who wasn't happy. And we got spoken to about it that evening, so we decided anyway when we came back we would home educate them. And try and find a Catholic curriculum, and that was difficult. And then I wasn't a teacher either, so I was concerned about that. And obviously got all this time we had no priest. We were just plodding along ourselves. And then after a couple of years, it got to a point where it was really becoming quite unbearable. And we contacted Bishop Hiverinus and asked him, was there any priest that we hadn't had Mass for all this time? And he had suggested trying Father Heine again. And I mean, I had kept in touch with Father Heine whilst we were away. So we contacted Father and said to him, look, I don't know what we can do because we're stony broke. We've got no money. We've had no Mass for years and we're really struggling. And Father's like, don't worry about it. And he came. And then we eventually got something set up with Father on a regular basis where he would come every 2 months. He would come to us before he went down to Ely in England, before they went down to England. Then Father Riesling's health improved and then he came. So they were coming between them one each month. So we got to have Mass on a monthly basis. But I might add that the first time that Caleb actually was able to fulfill his Sunday obligation for Mass was when he went to seminary, because we have never had a Sunday Mass here in Scotland. Never.
Wow.
And that hurts. That's difficult. That is difficult. But so and then obviously COVID hit and we've not had the priest, and obviously then we've had Caleb got his degree and some of my
in psychology, right?
Yeah, got a degree in psychology, and then
I could not believe that when he told me that. I was like, no kidding. Of all things, you went to study psychology.
He went to seminary, and then COVID hit, and he couldn't get home, and he had such a hard first year in seminary. He won't like me saying that, but he did. And that's because because of the biggest challenge of being without a priest and without a Mass is, and as converts like us, especially converts from another faith, was he didn't know enough. I felt that I had let him down, or we had let him down, because there was so much that he didn't know, so much of the things that maybe, I guess, cradle Catholics take for granted that we don't
seminary,
know.
Yeah, but in the seminary you find out, and that's what I told him when we were in the seminary together. I said to him, there's a lot of stuff I never found out. But I was a cradle Catholic, and there are a lot of things I never found out about until I joined the seminary, like some things that you think, oh, this is probably what it is. And then you go to the seminary and you realize that's actually a heresy. It happens.
Yeah.
Because theology is such a broad science. And this is something I've been discussing with people a lot lately. you have all these people out there, making YouTube videos and audios. Just the other day, like 2 days ago, someone I know sent it's not someone from America, but this person sent an audio of him talking about religious stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, oh no. When I saw the audio, I was like, oh no. And I listened to it, and it's like, bam, 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 like some things that is, errors.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in good faith. But the truth
Yeah.
is, it requires, and when you go to the seminary, I think everyone, even cradle Catholics, find out things that are different. But he was, and before I forget, I want to say something here, and for everyone who might be listening to this, say a prayer for the perseverance of all of us,
Yeah.
priests and seminarians, and also the people that are brave enough to come here into the show. We're talking about the story of them coming back to the faith, but we're still, as you said, this is not history yet. We're still in the process, and we should always pray for each other's perseverance, because there is something that happens to all converts. I think there is, like, first the moment of blessedness, and you find all these beautiful things, and you're very excited about the faith, and it's kind of like God is feeding you things with sugar, because it's difficult, so you get all those consolations, and then God and this happens in the spiritual life, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Then God starts taking away the sugar a little bit and giving you more bread, things that are more wholesome, but they're a little bit more bitter. And there comes that process in your convert's life where you suddenly hit reality, and you go, whoa, things are difficult. You actually have to fight against this and that, and you have to struggle to keep this and that. And you face, especially if you're converting right now, you face persecution. And you face the hostility of the world, which perhaps you hadn't found before. It's like, wow, now I just realized everyone in the world is actually against this particular religion.
That's right.
This is attacked by everyone. And that's a moment where the virtue of perseverance comes from everybody, but from new converts as well, where you have to say, okay, I know what the truth is, and I just keep to it, and I just keep fighting for it.
Yeah. I think so as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it is. And I think it is sometimes, I think when you're isolated, like so many people are now, there's so many lay people that seem to believe they're theologians as well. And, I'm certainly one of the ones that prefers to, get it from a priest, because they have the graces, they know, and they know so much more than we do. I was blessed that one thing Father Procopio taught me was, just keep it simple, and you're fine. I spoke to Father Heine about this recently, like, saying to him where even like this year when Caleb came back, it was like, because I've told him, like, don't hold back. If you find something that we're not doing right, tell us. You absolutely need to tell us. And, then when he was telling me, I was like, oh my goodness, I just want to cry here. I'm like, and at times I have felt that the isolation has caused us not to be, it's not that we've been intentionally lax or anything like that. We've tried our best to be faithful, but we have never ever been able to see what a normal Catholic family life is like on a daily basis. I wish somebody wrote a manual for Catholic daily life for, like, just lay people.
Yes,
like the simple things, like, this is going to sound crazy, but like people, when we were converted at first, people would say to you, like, you were in pain, offer it up. I had to actually go and speak to Father Procopio, feeling like an absolute idiot one day, and I said, how do you offer something up? What do we say? Right? Because people say these things, right? And you're like, what do I actually say? But that isolation is what is so difficult, I think, for converts. If there are we do not see I have not seen another Catholic since we dropped Caleb at seminary 2 years ago. We haven't seen other Catholics. We don't have contact with them, and not having had that, what Catholic families do on a daily basis has been difficult. And but it's been a great blessing to us as well, because through the difficulties you learn to rely on God, because you have to rely on God. You absolutely have to. And then, you just pray for forgiveness if you've not done enough. I think that's, for me, I would say, has been my biggest challenge. Is
I was going to get into that. I think you already answered the questions, but sorry.
Sorry, I've gone ahead.
No, but it's true. I always ask these questions to my guest in this particular show, and which is like 3 people so far. But is that so? That was probably the greatest challenge that you faced. Would you say that it was precisely that isolation?
Yeah, it was the isolation. It was we lost all of our friends. When we left Mormon church, everyone, we were abandoned. So we went from having friends to having no friends. But that wasn't a bad thing. I really genuinely don't think that was a bad thing. I think that was a blessing. But for some people, that can be difficult. But isolation is by far, far the most difficult we've come for us, and certainly from all the people even within, that attend Mass with us, that feeling of isolation. I know we try and keep in contact with people by email, and we've been trying to keep them up to date when Father's not been here. But you feel like, and Father Heine has been, if there's ever anything, he has been amazing, absolutely amazing. So it's not a criticism of Father at all. He could not do any more than he's doing for us. But we still feel isolated. We feel like we have no priest, no parish, no nothing. Absolutely nothing. We've not had Mass now. We've not had Mass now for nearly a year. Esther, as you know, is I don't know if you do know that Esther's going to the convent. She's heading to the convent in August, and so like that, she's worrying about, I'm going to have to go to the convent with a year's worth of confessions. They'll definitely not take me in. Now trying to embarrass Esther, embarrass Caleb enough. So
I'm sure they're fine, but let's not go into that, because I would have a lot of stories to tell for myself about me going to confession when I went to the monastery for the first time. What would you say?
That'll maybe make her feel a little bit better.
Sure.
So it is. Everyone has that feeling and that sense of isolation, and
and that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to do this webpage, this project of the Catholic Wire, because that's everywhere. We all have to deal with that, and there's people here and there that they want to be Catholic, and they want to have that parish life. And this project is not supposed to be only the priest talking to the people. It's supposed to be kind of like a network for Catholics. Yeah. So I want to have precisely what you were talking about, like have other Catholics share with other Catholics. This is what we do in our family. This is something nice you can do. Even fun stuff, even stuff that is like everyday stuff. I was thinking just yesterday, I think we're going to have some cooking contests. Like people will have to make like the video of their food.
Oh, that'd be great.
And cook it, and then whoever wins is going to get, I don't know, a T-shirt or something of the Catholic Wire.
It's that connection. That's what's missing. Is there needs to be that feeling of belonging in a social sense. Without it, it doesn't matter. Like I said, although that might be a challenge, you can get the greatest blessings from it because you do rely solely on God.
The other question I wanted to ask is, These are the three final questions. We have to
Okay.
go pretty soon, but I have a mass actually in a little bit. But what would you say was the greatest blessing that you have had since you found the faith?
That in spite of my weaknesses, my failings, my shortcomings, that Caleb's at seminary and that Esther's going to the convent.
That is,
100%.
that is a very good choice.
Yeah.
It is very, very true.
Whether Caleb sees it all the way through to ordination doesn't matter. The fact is that he was able to make that sacrifice and go despite, like, that's it, despite that, knowing now how much more I could have and should have done to maybe prepare my children, teach them better, all of those things, that God's love is so wonderful that he's not going to hold anyone back because of my weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as a mother, that 100%, that's what it has to be. I know each of us have to get to heaven for ourselves, but I think that most mums, it's like, I don't know, I think most of us kind of hope that we're going to sometimes ride in the shirt tails of our children because we want to push them there first, and sometimes we forget about ourselves. And I know it's important that we don't do that. We don't forget about ourselves. But yeah, that has to be by far the greatest blessing for me, anyway.
And the final question is, what advice would you give to people who are converting and to the young Catholics, the young Catholics who perhaps have had the faith since they were little, and sometimes they might not appreciate it as much as someone who found it. Someone who found the faith
Yeah.
is a treasure. What advice would you give to them?
I think I would just give the same advice as probably I give all my children, and that's get to know God. Like, prayer, pray to Him, ask Him when you have problems, because we all have problems in our lives, but don't just do it at the problems, do it at the good times as well, and develop a relationship with God, because if you don't do that, how on earth are you ever going to know what His will is for you without
Mm-hmm.
without having any form of relationship? Because we all know that life, it's more than just about this life and what we do. It's what we do for God that counts. And so, yeah, prayer. Like, I always want, I wrote a letter to Caleb before he went into seminary. And
Which we are going to publish in the Catholic Wire, by the way. No, just kidding.
It doesn't even have it, because I was reminding him of the night before, and he's like, that was a letter. And then I said, well, do you know, was it a letter, Caleb, or did I put it in I said, did I put it in a text message? Actually, it might have been a text message when we dropped him at seminary. But, in it, I quoted like my favourite scripture, which was in one of my favourite Bible stories, which was when Samuel was called. And it took God 3 times to call his name, and he still didn't know it was. He didn't know it was God that was calling, and he finally had to go and ask, and then was told, "No, go back." And the next time God calls, just say, "Here I am." And so that's, I think I've tried to live my life like that. Don't always get it right. Often or not, I don't get it right. But I think that's it. I think we have to be living our lives ready for whatever God is going to call us to do. And, we're all called to do different things, but we have to serve Him. So I think, again, it's back to that knowing God and being able to hear exactly what it is He's saying, and to be able to just go and do that. So that's what I would say is the most important thing, that have that relationship with God, and then you know exactly what it is, what His will is. And if we do God's will, like, like Father Clement Procopio said, once you do God's will, you have got absolutely no need to worry. Did you
That's
have
very
any
good.
worries in life? None.
Yeah, that's very good. So I think I will have to wrap it up because I have to get ready to
Yeah,
leave
no
for my
worries,
mass.
no.
But I do want to say thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Thank you for all your insights. I know it's difficult for some people, to go out and expose themselves and share these stories. But I'll say about your story what I said about mine. These kind of things, God makes them so that they help other people as well. And
Yeah,
I think that's very important. Everybody, please pray for the church in Scotland. Pray for not the Church of Scotland, but the
no.
church in
In
Scotland.
Scotland, yeah.
And pray for all of them, and hopefully we can get a priest there very soon, and start running a parish in Scotland. I think that would be really, really great.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. That would be
And,
amazing.
yeah, so everybody, please pray for that. And I'll let you know about the contest, the cooking contest. Maybe we can
Oh,
have
yeah.
a video made of the cooking in Scotland. I
Oh, well, you'll have heard about our Scottish food from Caleb, no doubt.
Yes, I have to say that story. We all addressed Margaret as mom when we were in the seminary, because Caleb would get these big packages with candy and
That's
all kinds
right.
of stuff, and there were some things always addressed to the rest of the seminarians, and that
Yeah.
was very enjoyable. So we had. I still have the shirt that you sent for me, and I'm actually
Good,
wearing the sandals that you bought for me right
good,
now.
good. Oh, that's good.
So that's really appreciated. But thank you so much for being with the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That
You
was
have no
great.
idea how much I appreciate it. And hopefully, say a prayer also that we can work to get this project going and create that
Yeah,
community with Catholics.
yeah, because I think that would be fantastic. It's really, really what's needed for all of us that are, whatever part of the world that we're in, that we're feeling isolated and alone. And it's nice to have something, and it's nice to have something that's organised and overseen by a priest, I think, is
Hmm.
even better. So, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let's hope that I have time for doing that too. So
No,
we will
we'll
wrap
pray
it
for
up
that.
there. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us again. You are listening to the Catholic Wire and Back to the Faith. And the last thing I would say is that, as I said to all my guests, I have a mass that I say every month for all our cooperators. And of course, you will be included there with all your family and the intentions of the people in Scotland.
Thank you, Father. Thank you.
Thank you for
Take
being
care.
with us, and God
Take
bless you
care.
all.
God bless. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Catholic Wire. If you have found this show helpful, please say a prayer for all our collaborators. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels and share with your friends. For questions and comments, you may contact us at thecatholicwire.org.